What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be checking out the GoldenEar T66 tower speakers. Now, before we start talking about the speakers, I want to thank today's sponsor of this video, LG.
We all want our movies to look as good or better than they do at the theaters, and with an LG OLED, it'll look better. OLED pixels emit their own light for perfect black levels with shadow details you've probably been missing out on with a conventional LCD LED TV. They've got infinite contrast and can produce a billion rich colors. You can get them in 4K resolution, or if you want the crispiest, sharpest image possible with over 33 million pixels, an LG 8K OLED will deliver a truly outstanding cinematic experience. To simplify your movie watching, LG Smart WebOS TV has all the major content streaming apps and will be upgraded for years to come, giving you updated performance for up to 5 years. All of this performance is handled by LG's powerful AI processing to give you the best smart features and the ultimate 4K and 8K video and audio quality. From 42 inches up to 97 inches, there is an LG OLED for everyone. If you're interested in grabbing an LG TV, you can find links down below in this video's description.
And thanks LG for sponsoring today's video. If you want to pick up an LG television set to pair up with your T66s for an awesome home theater setup, you can find links down below in this video's description. Now, first thing that immediately struck me was how much these sounded like the BRX GoldenEar speakers that we reviewed, I want to say a couple years back now. Obviously, these are a lot bigger speakers, but they do share a couple things in common. Aesthetically, they do look very similar to the BRX speakers, albeit just a bit taller. Well, a lot taller. It's still got the same AMT tweeter in it, two 4.5-inch mid-bass drivers, and then of course, being tower speakers, it does have two 5x9 long-throw quadratic subwoofers and two 8x12 passive radiators. And the thing that I liked about the BRX speakers, which I also really liked about these speakers, is that high frequency detail from that AMT tweeter. I know we compared it to the LS50 Metas back then, but for today's comparison, I have been kind of flip-flopping back and forth with my own reference pair of speakers, which are a pair of Perlisten R5T towers. So if you're familiar with those speakers, those are very neutral speakers, very flat measuring speakers as well. So it doesn't edge one way or the other, it doesn't edge bright, it's not too soft, it's totally neutral, right? So the first thing that really struck out to me when comparing these two speakers was the top end detail on the GoldenEars. And it's like I said, it's the same kind of experience that I had when I listened to the BRXs. I don't want to say it's as airy as, say, something like an Electrostat speaker, which is still kind of my favorite speaker, but it's really close to, say, like a Focal speaker where you get that high frequency extension. It doesn't quite get as it wasn't as harsh as, like, say, the LS50s were, but it does capture a lot of that micro detailing that we can hear in a lot of songs. Say, for instance, one of my favorite songs is Fiona Apple's Shadow Boxer. At the start of that song, you can hear the lip smacking, which I love to hear. You know, when you're testing out these high-end speakers, you want to hear every little nuance, and it really picks up that lip smacking detail, so you can kind of hear the spittle in her mouth every time she opens her mouth. Comparing it to the Perlistens, it's there, but you really have to listen for it. Whereas on the GoldenEars, it's like you just sit there, you close your eyes, and you can automatically hear as she's opening her mouth and speaking into the microphone. It's a bit harder to hear on the Perlistens, which tells me that the GoldenEars, obviously, they edge a little bit more on the brighter side of neutral. And that is something that I like. I do like a bright speaker. I don't like it to be overly bright, but, you know, subjectively speaking, I do like a brighter speaker. And these GoldenEars definitely hit that sweet spot of not being too bright and just having that slight roll off where it keeps the sibilancy out of the S's. So, for instance, Lenny Kravitz, It Ain't Over Till It's Over. He says a lot of S's in that song. And this is a song that I listened to that we had compared with the BRXs. I want to say the Focal Canta 3s, when we listen to that song on the Canta 3s, those S's are so ear-piercing. Even on the LS50 Metas, they became a little bit grating the louder that you turn up the volume. I get the same detail on the Perlisten, but it is much more neutral, so you don't get the nice sizzle on the top end. It's a bit more shh, where on the T66 it's more like a tss. So I mean, there is a bit more sparkle on the GoldenEar over the Perlissons. And sorry, I know I'm bouncing back and forth between all these different other speakers, but it's kind of what floods through my mind when I'm comparing. And another great song is This Love by Clara. This one has a lot of high-end detail as well, not only from her voice, because she does have a lot of S's as well in her voice, which is really controlled on the GoldenEars. And also in the right speaker, you can hear the guitar strings. Every time the guitarist is plucking the string, it's very, very twangy sounding on the T66s, where it's definitely softer on the Perlissons. So you get really good spatial definition because of that high frequency detail, and you get a little bit more air, I would say, over the Perlissons as well. And the Perlissons are great speakers, so you have speakers that are your reference speakers, but then something else comes along that just does something a little bit better that makes you think, maybe I should have gone with these speakers instead. So I mean, just that high frequency detail is just a bit crisper. And because that detail is so good on the top end, I would say the soundstage is also, it's wider. You get that big wraparound sensation, especially with that Lenny Kravitz song. The instruments, I think it's the keyboards, they sound like they're coming out here, almost like you're wearing headphones. Whereas on the Perlissons, it's a little bit pushed a little bit more forward. I'm not going to take away anything from the Perlissons, but a bit more three-dimensional on the T66s. The Perlissons, just a bit more forward. And since we're on the topic of talking about micro detailing and treble response, high frequency detail, I put in the song by Yim Hawk Man. I think it's called Poem of a Drum. Every time the sticks would hit the drum, you can hear the top of the drum, the surface of the drum, I think it's called the head. You can hear just that slight, the tension of it every time the sticks would hit the drum. I mean, that kind of micro detailing sounded fantastic on the GoldenEars. Still there on the Perlissons, but you really have to listen for it. So just the crispy detail on the T66s, so good. And as far as like sound staging is concerned, one of my go-to songs that we always listen to over here is from the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil. This song here, it starts off with Mick Jagger kind of singing off to the left very slightly, and then we've got guitars we've got the guitar on the left side, and then we've got the backup singers doing the woo-woos over on the right side. And the clear separation between singer, guitarist, backup singers is phenomenal sounding on these speakers. Near three-dimensional. Still, I don't think it's quite as good as, say, an electrostat, so it doesn't have quite that transparency or that holographic imaging, but it's still very three-dimensional. You can almost tell if you shut your eyes, when you shut your eyes and you listen to the music, you can just tell exactly where everybody is placed on this stage, almost as if it's kind of live in your room. The Perlissons do capture that as well. I still think that the T66s have a slightly deeper soundstage. I want to say about maybe 2 feet behind the speakers, whereas the Perlissons are maybe about 1 foot behind the speakers. I am in a new room, so I have moved into a new house, so I'm still getting kind of acclimated to what this room sounds like with different speakers. Now, there's a part in the song where Keith Richards comes in. I think it's about 3 minutes into the song. He does the guitar solo, and on brighter speakers, I want to say on the Focal Cantas, the LS50 Metas, that part of the song can get so ear-piercing that it just kind of like feels like needles in your ears. Whereas on both of these speakers, the Perlisson and also the T66s, it's just sharp enough, just bright enough where it does not ever pierce your ears or cause you any kind of ear pain whatsoever. It doesn't get fatiguing whatsoever. It's a little bit more soft on the Perlisson, whereas I think it's just right on these ribbon tweeters. So whether you have the volume down low for some low-level listening, or if you're cranking this thing up, man, these tweeters just sounded so good. I also forgot to mention what equipment that I'm using for these speakers. I don't have anything fancy this time around. I'm using a Hi-Fi Rose RS520, which puts out 250 watts per channel. Everything is plugged into an AudioQuest 707 power conditioner. I have the speakers powered up by a pair of AudioQuest NRG power cables, and also I'm using AudioQuest speaker cables as well. And as far as sources, I am using a Roon Nucleus 1 paired up with Qobuz to play back the music. So I do think it's a somewhat modest system and not anything too elaborate. Now, of course, the one area where this speaker is way different than the BRXs is going to be the powered woofer section. This thing has a frequency response of 29 Hertz up to 25K, and I think we've already established that It's already hitting that 25K, that high frequency detail already there. Mid-range is there, vocals sound fantastic, and the highs, sparkly, ultra detailed. But then for bass response, this is where it really does take over my per listen speakers. It's saying 29 hertz here, but I know it's going deeper, especially with a room gain and placement within my room. If you have a bigger space, maybe you won't get as much output, but in my space, I believe it's something like 13 by 18. This thing couples with my room really well, and it digs extremely, extremely low. I mean, if we go back to the Yim Hawk Man's poem of a Chinese drum, they just hit you so hard. They're so quick. The attack is so instantaneous. And then as the drums kind of end, you can feel just that wave of that tail end of the bass just float through your room. It's impressive. If you really want to test out the speakers, put in Kanye West's Love Lockdown. Just right from the opening, it just goes boom, 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 boom. You just get these quick successive bass hits that hit extremely hard, and then it just reverberates down extremely low. The per listen speakers cannot do this song justice, whereas T66s with the powered section is tremendous. It's like having subwoofers in your room without actually having to have a gigantic box. I mean, the extension on these speakers, amazing sounding, which makes them great for double duty, because not only have I been using this with the Hi-Fi Rose, I also been using this for TV watching as well, just for like some light home theater watching, 2-channel home theater watching. So if you're watching Mad Max, you're watching Godzilla King of the Monsters, this thing is going to sound like you have got a subwoofer in your house. It sounds amazing, truly amazing, with this much output from these power towers. Since they are power towers, they do shine with pop music, rap music, stuff like that. But the more that you turn up the bass, the more that you're kind of going to be drowning out some of the mids and the high frequency detail, whereas it can become a bit overpowering of everything else in the towers. So, I mean, if you don't want to get ultra critical with your listening, I always kept it at like the halfway mark. But if I was just like walking around the house or just wanting to jam out, me and my buddies were just drinking some beer or something like that and just chilling, we would crank it all the way up, throw in a bunch of rap music, pop music, and just jam out and just let the bass just take over the room. So if you want to just have really fun with it, fun with your music, fun with your movies, you can jack this thing up. It's not going to overdrive the speakers. At least we didn't overdrive the speakers. And these things just are super dynamic. And then, of course, back it down if you want to go for some more critical listening. And another thing to keep in mind is that the sensitivity on these speakers are 91 dB. And that, with the powered section of each speaker, you don't need a whole lot of power to juice these speakers up, because the bass is going to take the load off of your amplifiers because it's already powered. Whereas everything else from like the tweeter and the mid-range, you know, it's not going to take that much juice to power up. So if you're coming at it with something like a Hi-Fi Rose or something a little bit smaller like the Evo 150 that I have on hand, I mean, either one of those had no issues driving these speakers to like full reference level. Now, at the time of this video, a single T66 does cost $3,450. This is the one in black. It does come in red, which looks ultra cool. That costs $3,600 each. I mean, for $3,500 a pop, these things are going to be really tough to beat. And I think these look a lot better than the older models. Gone is that sock. Now we've got that nice, sleek, glossy look. The nice full grill from top to bottom. You don't have to worry about any pulls or anything like that on the fabric. Aesthetically speaking, I think these look great in my living room. They don't take up a lot of space. They have a very slim footprint. And I think these sound as good as they look. Now, if you guys are interested in picking up any one of these speakers, the GoldenEars, or anything else that I've mentioned in this video, I will leave some links down below in this video's description. So what are your thoughts on the GoldenEar T66 speakers? Have you heard them? And what'd you think of their performance? Leave your comments down below and let me know. Like this video if you found it useful, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.